Hey, this is Zach from W Freelancing. Today, I bring you 3 skills to build before you quit your job to go freelance. So by being employed right now, you're actually in a very, very strong position to set yourself up for success as a freelancer. I toiled away for like 5 years freelance before I got a job and then freelanced as a side hustle. And that period where I was working a job and freelancing on the side was the thing that finally, after so much struggle, allowed me to build an actually good freelance business. Because before that, I was always so broke and burnt out and between low-paying projects that I was just constantly scrambling to get new, crappy, low-paying work in the door. And by having my bills paid and by being exposed to better developers and a proper agency, I was able to have a little bit of breathing room and also build my skills in a lower pressure environment. So that's awesome. And by being employed, you're in a good position. But where a lot of freelancers go wrong is they wait until they've quit their job to actually build important skills to set themselves up for success as a freelancer. And if you go into your freelancing career the way that you've gone into your career as an employee, you're gonna have a bad time. Because the skills that you need to be successful as a freelancer are very different than the skills you need to be successful as an employee. So today I want to give you 3 skills that you can focus on building right now that will be a really strong foundation for you to build your freelance business, whether you do it as a side hustle or whether you save up and quit your job. So skill number 1, look at the forest through the trees. It's really easy when you're an employee to get into the trap of just looking at your specific task. And if you do this as a freelancer, you're going to miss so many opportunities, whether it's opportunities to serve your clients better, opportunities to charge more, whatever. You're just really going to be shooting yourself in the foot. And so what I would challenge you to start doing immediately is whenever you are assigned a task at work, ask yourself, or better yet, your boss, how this task fits into the bigger picture. And it's important that you ask, if you're going to ask your boss, you ask in the right way. You don't want to come off as insubordinate or as a know-it-all or whatever. If it were me, I'd probably, if they were like, hey, Zach, we need you to build this email for a client. If I didn't already feel that I had a pretty good fundamental understanding of what that email is doing for the client, I'd probably say something like, cool, just to help me make sure I do a great job, can you share with me like a quick rundown of how this project fits in with like the big scope of what the client's trying to accomplish. Try to find some way that you can ask this without feeling like a pain in the butt, because you're gonna be asking it a lot depending on the volume of your stuff. But if you can start to take this approach, even if it's only internally, even if you know your boss wouldn't allow you to ask these kinds of questions, getting your head into the space of trying to understand how your specific role affects the project as a whole and how that project affects your client's problems is going to be like such a boon for you as a freelancer. So we have a worksheet called the Client Fundamental Needs Worksheet, which I'll link to below the video. You can fill this worksheet out for work tasks, and that'll help you to connect your work tasks more with the potential fundamental problems of the client. Sometimes that client is the company that you work at. Other times, if you work at an agency, it is the agency's client. But either way, doing this exercise, whoever the client is, even if the client is just your boss, it's going to get you into this problem solution headspace, which is like a great technique for raising your rates. So tip number 2, and if the lighting looks way different, it's because there's been like a 20-minute pause. The sun has set a little bit more. So sorry for the abrupt change. But tip number 2, look for opportunities to do more work, not less. When I was first freelancing, I guess part of it's my ADHD disinclination to do copy and pasty types of work, something like that. I don't know, maybe just being young and not having practice yet. I would often try to avoid work, especially repetitive work. But over time, I've come to appreciate that by doing that, I am losing out on opportunities to do what I'm ultimately here to do, which is serve my clients as best as possible. If there's work I don't like, the solution is not to slack off and try to avoid it on a client's project. It's to try to build the kind of business where I don't have to do that work so much anymore, or hire someone on the staff to do that kind of work. It's not to slack off on it. And I think when you're working at a job, you're often not really incentivized to try to do more work. In fact, you are only incentivized to try to do less, because many of us work at jobs where our bosses are trying to take advantage of us and eke out every little drop of productivity from us. So when I say to look for opportunities to do more work, I'm not necessarily saying become a yes man or a yes woman and just do whatever's assigned to you. What I'm saying is take that forest through the trees view that we talked about in step 1 and look for other opportunities at the company to serve that. Look for tasks that you can do to benefit the end client that maybe weren't assigned to you. Whether or not you decide to pursue these tasks or pitch your boss on these tasks, it doesn't matter. The value is in looking for them. When you're a freelancer doing work for clients, you don't want to try to do as little as possible. Your number one goal that will get you to the top paid freelancer tier is going to be looking for ways to move the needle as much as possible, looking for ways to add as much value as you can to your clients, because the more value you can add, the more you can charge. And it's as simple as that. Whether it takes you 10 minutes to add that value or it takes you 20 hours, if you are able to earn a client an extra $100,000, they will pay you $50,000 to earn that money, even if it took just a few hours for you to do that work. Tip number 3, be proactive, take ownership, and become a self-starter. So as an employee, you are assigned things. And depending on your role in the company, you may have a little bit of ownership or you may have a lot. If you're something like an art director, for example, you have a lot more ownership and initiative taking than if you're a graphic designer. But as a freelancer, it's really important that you don't just wait around for things to be assigned to you. We talk around here at DYF a lot about commoditized freelancing work. And what that essentially boils down to is work that is defined by a job title. So commoditized graphic design work is hiring somebody who's a graphic designer. The problem with being a commoditized graphic designer is you are always going to have your hourly rates compared to whatever the cheapest graphic designer is charging. Whereas if you are someone who specializes in solving valuable business problems and you happen to use graphic design to do that, you're able to charge much more. And so this third tip about being proactive and taking ownership, it's about not seeing yourself as whatever your role is, and instead seeing yourself as a consultant who happens to work at whatever company you currently work at, but that ultimately you're here to be a self-contained value deliverer. And so thinking about things that fall outside your scope of responsibilities. So if you're a designer or a developer, don't just think about design, don't just think about code. Think about how it ties into that forest through the trees thing from step 1, and think about how your role and responsibility ties in with the other roles and responsibilities that go into the project. So if there's design, dev, copy, think about how whichever one of those is yours plays in with the other two, and be thinking about roadblocks that might come up and how you'll get around them. Think about who you need to contact to make sure that your work is playing together nicely, things like that. Ultimately, if I could say 3 small things that this boils down to, it is essentially think things through, don't wait to be asked to do something, and double check your shit. It's so common for people who are used to being employees to just do a round 1, send it off, and trust that their boss is going to check it and make sure that they don't ship any bugs. And so they wait until it comes back, the boss has the revisions, they do the revisions, and it goes back and forth. I want you to pretend that whatever you sign off on and send to your manager is like going out to the world and the president of the United States is going to read it and make their assessment about it or something. I don't know. That's maybe not a good one. But pretend that whatever your V1 is of utter critical importance. And don't send something out until you're very, very confident that you've minimized mistakes. This doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes. I make plenty of mistakes, even though I try to double check or triple check my work. But if you can get in the habit of just thinking things through, double check your shit and don't wait to be asked to do something. Look for problems, resolve them before they happen, resolve them before they're assigned to you. These are all skills that are going to benefit you hugely as you go out to be freelance. So those are the 3 tips for today. Hopefully you find them helpful. We have a free course called Charge What You're Worth that'll help you take these tips, implement them, and figure out how to position yourself in the eyes of your potential clients so that you can charge high rates and close a much higher percentage of your sales calls. So if you want to build on these, I'd recommend putting these into place and going through that Charge What You're Worth course as you're prepping yourself to go freelance. That free course is at dyf.link/sales course. So hopefully you found these helpful. Hope to see you in there, and see you in the next video.